This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired, active and retired law enforcement officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. My goodness, guys, you'd think I'd have it down by, I've done that over 200 times. I still can't nail it every time. Anyways, I'm not redoing it. This is like, I run it like a radio show. If I make an error, I'm sticking with it. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for finding the show and listening to the backlog. Just had a gigantic spike in downloads. I don't know what, so this happens once in a while. I'll just get this spike that's like 3, 4, 5, 10 times what I normally get. So apparently the show was mentioned somewhere or somebody got a hold of it and really had a bunch of new listeners just come through. So I appreciate that. If you are new here in this podcast, it's pretty simple. I interview active and retired law enforcement about their true experiences responding to calls and what it was like, unedited. They can tell you exactly what they experienced, how it affected them, what they really do out there, and it spans across the globe. I've had international guests, but mostly here in America, some in Canada, and it's just so you get a better appreciation for what it is the men and women of law enforcement are out there doing for us. So it's been a wild ride. I've really enjoyed doing this podcast. It's like 5 or 6 years now I've been doing it, and I get to sit down once a week and hear just the craziest stories that you would never believe were real, but I can attest to it that they are, because I am in law enforcement myself, and you just come across the weirdest, most bizarre, most intense things you couldn't imagine. And yeah, it's really been a blast, and I appreciate the rating and reviewing. I did get one review recently that said I don't have enough black officers on. I'm an equal opportunity interviewer. I would love to have more black officers. There's no filter keeping them out. I think I've had 4 or 5 out of like 200 plus interviews, but that's just because I've not been contacted by them to come on. So just to answer that for you, he gave me a negative review because I haven't, and like there's something I can do about that. There really isn't. So black cops out there, bring it on. Give me an email, steve@thingspolicey.com. Love to have you. Love to have everybody on. If you've been a cop for 4 or 5 years, and you got some stories, great. You don't have to have something going on. You don't have to have been on TV or have or be famous or be a commentator on, investigation discovery or any of that stuff. Really just coppers that have worked the job for a little bit. I know you're rolling around in your cruiser, you're listening, and you're thinking, I think I've got some stories I could definitely share, and believe me, you do. So I would implore you to reach out, because that's kind of how we keep it rolling. And there's been a little bit of a slowdown recently. So I used to have them stacked, ready to go, and people have kind of slowed down. So I would encourage you, if you yourself are law enforcement or former law enforcement and you have some stories, please reach out. And if you know somebody, encourage them. A lot of these older coppers are not, or just getting into podcasts, or aren't aware, and they have a treasure trove of crazy stories, and very valuable for people to hear these, especially people young in law enforcement or thinking about getting into law enforcement. They have some great stories they're sitting on, and it would be fantastic to share them with everybody, because it really does create a positive ripple through the community. So that's my pitch for getting guests. So if you want to do that, email me directly or shoot me a message on social media. Follow me on Things Police See at Instagram or on Facebook or wherever, and we'll get it done. So anyways, our guest today, excited to have him. I've never had somebody that held the position that this gentleman held in law enforcement. We were just talking before he came on how it's such a variety across America, because the country is so big and sprawling, with districts set up all different ways and precincts and different specialties. So this gentleman coming on was a warrant investigator for the 1st Judicial District of Pennsylvania. He also has worked 14 years as a college professor teaching criminal justice classes. Also the co-author of the book Philly Warrant Unit, available on Amazon now. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Tristan Kilgallen. I said it right? Kilgallen. Got it.
Yes, sir. Perfect. Nailed it.
Great to have you, man. I got to tell you, right off the bat, I got to hit you with a Kensington question. If you don't mind, because I am a person that is a big consumer of podcasts. I'm still on the job. Podcasts are a godsend to me. Like I do a lot of like road work and I do a lot of patrolling. So when podcasts started getting popular, I was like, man, these are all free and you can just listen to any genre, any interest you have. There's plumbers out there with podcasts with 100,000 downloads a month because they talk plumbing. You know what I mean? It's really cool. But anyways, all that to say, I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts and a lot of kind of like bro comedy, like just kind of like 3 or 4 guys shooting the shit. And a lot of these guys come from the Philly area or do comedy in Philly. And when Kensington comes up, I'm not a Philly guy. I grew up on Cape Cod, which is like an hour and a half from Boston. If anything, I'm a Boston guy. So I don't know the neighborhoods in Philadelphia. All I know is when they mention Kensington, it sounds like they're talking about like a post-apocalyptic area of Philly that's just disastrous. So what is up with this? Is it a village or?
No, it's a neighborhood. So, Philadelphia's big city. I think we're the 5th or 6th biggest city in America right now.
Yeah, it's huge.
And you've got dozens and dozens of neighborhoods. I mean, there's so many neighborhoods. Sometimes you could be a native Philadelphian and live there your whole life, and you've never even heard of this neighborhood. There's so many of them. So Kensington is one that I guess, unfortunately, is well known for being ground zero for the heroin trade in Philly. And because of its proximity to I-95, which runs up and down, from Maine to Florida, essentially, you get a lot of people coming from out of state or upstate PA, and they come down to Kensington, hop off, right off I-95, and you can just walk down the street and buy anything you want. Prostitutes are on every single corner, any drug you can imagine, guns, whatever you want, it's all there. And a lot of times people will get at you and say, well, how come they just let this happen? And the answer is simply there's just too many people that are wanted. We'll talk about it later, I guess, but I had, statewide jurisdiction, but spent most of my time in Kensington because it's a neighborhood I was familiar with. I went to high school in Kensington. So I knew the neighborhood well. I saw it deteriorate. In the book, I talk about it like back in the 90s when I was in high school. It was still bad. It was a rough area, rough neighborhood. But
what was it known for before it fell? Was it an artsy community or was it business?
No.
Or what was it?
Well, Philly, it's one of the sad legacies of what used to be industry in Philly. So you had a lot of factories and things that were in these neighborhoods in the early 1900s, same as Frankfurt, the neighborhood where I actually grew up in. So these are all clothing factories and stuff like that, probably in our grandparents' era.
So probably a lot of like Irish, a lot of Italian.
Oh,
back 100%.
In the day. Yeah. I mean, Philly, mostly you have Irish, Italian, Polish, Puerto Ricans and African Americans, obviously. And a lot of it depends what neighborhoods you live in. What different ethnic groups are going to be there. So if you head down to, Port Richmond or Bridesburg, where my mother lives, it's a lot of Polish people or different neighborhoods or different ethnicities. And I think you've seen that over time. Now, some of the neighborhoods have changed as they've gotten worse. A lot of times the demographics change as people move and it shifts. But Kensington was at one point, probably in the early 1900s, very productive place, lots of blue collar jobs. And once those jobs went away, it just kind of, fell into disrepair. So the houses are awful looking. You see them through smashed out windows, open burning trash cans like you'd see in some movie about a third world country. People just wander in the streets at midnight. I mean, it looks like The Walking Dead, honestly.
Yeah, I've seen some videos there, dude. I wouldn't want to walk 10 feet down those streets. It looks there's a lot of people doing that doper, like hunched over, like just like.
Yep. They never actually go over, right? But they got like.
It's like the windows like boop, boop, boop. Yeah. And they're just. Yeah. Dude, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for explaining that. Because I hear this Kensington thrown around and they joke about it and about being zombie land, and I'm like, man, sounds terrible. So what exactly? Can you explain to the audience and to me what exactly is a warrant investigator in Philadelphia?
Okay. Well, I guess the job no longer exists because the unit merged with the sheriff's office a couple years back, maybe about a decade ago now. But essentially, what it was. The sheriffs used to handle all warrant service in Philadelphia. So if somebody has a bench warrant because they didn't show up for a court date, or if they're on probation and they violate and they get a detainer issued, they used to go and lock all those people up. So, I when I was doing the book and when I started, because I work in academia, I've done some academic papers about this I'm working on, start digging up the documents from when the unit was founded in the 70s. And it basically says, I'm not trying to disrespect the sheriffs, but they didn't do a very good job at it. So they applied for some kind of federal grant, got this grant, and created their own unit. And then I found a document that was issued maybe a year or two after they created the unit that said arrests were up and the clearance of warrants was, way up. So they liked the unit. And I guess it got permanently funded. So technically speaking, we worked for the First Judicial District of Pennsylvania, which would be like a state entity because it's part of the state court system. But I believe we were paid through, well, I know all my benefits and everything was paid through the city of Philadelphia, but I'm not sure how they kind of worked out, the money part of it. But the one cool thing was because we were technically, I guess, a state agency is we had jurisdiction outside of Philly. So if you're a regular Philadelphia police officer, you have citywide jurisdiction, obviously, but you usually tend to stay in whatever district and then whatever sector within that district, where we were free to go wherever we wanted. So it was kind of a beautiful thing from a law enforcement perspective. We had free range for Philly, surrounding counties. I mean, I guess technically we could go to Pittsburgh or something if we wanted to, but I don't think they were going to pay overtime for us to, drive halfway across the state. But it was a pretty cool job. And we had a lot of freedom. I think in Philly at any given time, there was like 50,000 warrants. So, you could pick and choose. You obviously had some cases handed to you, like, priority cases.
Yeah, get this guy.
But you were also free to work up your own jobs. So sometimes you'd have special days where you went after, sex offenders, or maybe started hitting all the murderers or the drug boys or whatever it is. So, it was a lot of fun to kind of pick what you got to do in a law enforcement career.
I bet. So what was a day like for you? Did you where did you report in the morning? Did you go to was it at the DA's office or in the court? Did you have your own building?
No, we had our own building down on Arch Street, kind of right downtown, across from City Hall, basically. And on one of the floors was adult probation and parole. And on one of the other floors was us. And then, other areas, other government agencies throughout the building. So I worked last out for the first couple of years, and then I worked like a permanent weekend shift that they created. So I was always 11 to 7. So basically, I'd roll in at 11 o'clock. We would do roll call. If there's any priority jobs that are assigned, if someone, messed up house arrest or got a probation, detainer.
Like these are overnight shifts, 11 to 7 a.m.?
Yeah. So basically, whatever happened that day kind of gets handed to us. Sometimes you get a couple priority jobs, you do those, and then the rest is up to you. So usually you spend maybe like 45 minutes working up cases. So we try to hit 8 houses a day, right? So that's kind of the idea. Now, I think when I started my career, I'd work up 8 cases and try to go hit them all, but it's not the most productive way to do business. So what I used to do, me and my team, we'd get the priority jobs and I'd immediately go down to Kensington Ave. And we would start going to crack houses that we knew, and we knew all the prostitutes, all the drug users, and most of them would sell their soul. If they got a bench warrant for prostitution, I'll cut them a break. Hey, give me the new drug house in the neighborhood. Give me somebody bigger than you. And they would do it every single time. And I'm not worried about them because I can just lock them up tomorrow because they're not going anywhere, right? I mean, no one's going to be here. So you go down there, kind of hit the crack houses, see what's going on, and just see what you can get into, have some fun. And then maybe you'd hit your assigned jobs and, all that kind of stuff.
That's cool. So it wasn't just warrants. You had full peace officer status. You could do whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll tell you the one beautiful thing, because most of the people we're locking up are wanted on bench warrants. We didn't have all that paperwork. So when we tell people we'd lock up 20 people in a shift, people think that's impossible. There's no way you do that, the paperwork. But we didn't have that problem.
Sign the warrant, drop them off.
Yeah. Well, they're already there. So we'd have them, made up ahead of time. But if it's somebody we stumbled across, you would just have the people at the front desk fax the warrant up to the county jail, throw them in a van. We'd get 12 people in the van and then run them up to the jail.
That's got to feel good. I mean, because a normal cop can't do that. You're taking a lot of people off the street.
Yeah. Well, I explain it to guys that most PD, you lock someone up, you're doing paperwork for a while.
It's highly annoying, Tristan. Highly annoying.
Yeah. That's why, a lot of times people say, would you be a regular cop? And I was like, no, I couldn't handle all that, the paperwork and the delays. But with us, I don't say it was like the Wild West, but you were free to do kind of what you wanted. We would run one van with a driver, like a 12-person secure van. And then the teams would just have the van driver come and meet us and pick up our prisoners and, run them up to CFCF, which was the county jail there.
Oh, very cool. And what years did you do this job?
I was in, I think, 03 to 07. And then I left to go to law school in 07.
Wow.
So not that long. But my partner I wrote the book with was in there, I think maybe 10, 12 years until they closed the agency, essentially.
Yeah, you're too smart for that. You went and got a nice law degree.
Yeah, my wife wasn't having it anymore. She said, what are you doing? You're making 40 grand and you get shot in the face. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, you got a lot in those years, though. Can you tell us the first warrant you served, the first call you went on that was really hot, like really got your blood going?
The first one wasn't super crazy, but it was maybe my second day on the job, and I got sent to a house in Frankfurt, which was literally 2 blocks away from the house I grew up in.
Oh,
And like
weird.
one of my good friends lives across the street. You know what I mean? So we go to hit this house, and I was actually feeling pretty good about it because I at least knew the neighborhood. You know what I mean? I grew up here. I know this place like the back of my hand. If something breaks off, I'm not in some neighborhood I'm unfamiliar with. So we go up to the door, and I'm, just literally been on the street like my second day. And the guy I'm with, the senior kind of training officer guy, goes to the door. Dave knocks on the door. And obviously we're briefed ahead of time. We know who we're looking for, what they're, it was a drug guy.
Right.
So he walks up to the door, and you'd have one guy go in the back of the house, and then 2 of us come up in the front. We always work 3-man teams. So Dave knocks on the door. I kind of go over the window and just peek in, and I see dude sitting right on the sofa. And sitting there with his girlfriend. So when he knocks, girlfriend gets up, and dude runs up the steps. So he comes over, and Dave's like, "Hey, shows him warrant. We're looking for this dude." And of course, she's, "Oh, I've never seen him before," And I'm just like out of the way. So I just walk straight in, and go straight upstairs because I just seen dude go up there. He could be loading a gun. I have no idea what he's doing. I don't want to give him any time. So I go up, and these are pretty small row homes. They're not very big. So I go up the stairs, clear out the back room, go through the bathroom, start making my way up to the front bedroom. And as I get up the front bedroom, he's not there. Windows are still closed, so he didn't jump out the windows. And I see a closet. And all of a sudden, like in my brain, it's like that scene in Halloween, right? When Michael Myers is on the other side of the door. So I'm like, all right, man, here we go. I hate having to pull open those like swingy door things because they can see you, you can't see them. I don't know what he's doing, So I'm like, get out. I know you're in there. Come on out, come out. He won't get out. So then finally, I swing the door open, pull my gun up like right in his face. And the dude is sitting on pounds and pounds and pounds of marijuana, like a chair. There's so many of them sitting on it. There's guns in there and cigar boxes full of cash. And I'm just like, what? They didn't teach me this. I'm not prepared for all this, right?
Yeah.
So I grip him up, and we get him in cuffs. And we got to call in the narcotics team, which was pretty sweet. Again, second day in, kind of a neat thing to do.
Yeah.
So we went through the house with narcotics, ripped the whole house apart. They found all kinds of, at the trifecta, I guess, guns, drugs, and money. And it was like a pretty big case, especially I think for like my second day on the job.
Yeah.
And it was kind of
definitely.
interesting just seeing how the whole process worked. They took us up to, up to their district, and we wrote up the search warrants to come back and rip the house up and everything. So, it's not particularly hot, but it was, I think, a pretty big job for my second day. So,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. That is, and you never worked patrol somewhere. You just went right to this unit.
Yep. And you basically, they try to keep you in different neighborhoods, so we're not all on the same exact place.
Right.
But generally, I kind of claimed to Kensington pretty early. Like I said, I went to high school there, had a lot of friends there, so knew it pretty decent. So I just kind of stayed there. Other guys would go to South Philly or Southwest or, Germantown, wherever they want to go. But it was, it was fun.
Yeah, that's cool. A buddy of mine was in the Coast Guard, and he was in Philly for a couple of years. He loved it. I guess he plays bagpipes, and I guess there's a big Irish culture there.
Yeah.
And he just loved Philadelphia. He wanted, the whole time he got moved out of there, he just kept trying to get back. He wanted to go back there.
It's so strange to me. I'm in like Northwest Ohio now, and apparently there's like no Irish people here at all. So it's a little bit weird. Like I was in the Ancient Order of Hibernians in Philly, and you have all these different Irish groups and everything. And I come out here, and I'm stranded. I guess there's not too many Irish people out here.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's funny to think because the Irish are all over the East Coast.
Yep.
But like, you get to the Midwest. There's a lot of Germans. There's a lot of like Dutch and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's some in Cleveland, but that's about it. The rest of the place is mostly like Scandinavians and Germans, like you said. But, it's not bad out here. It's just strange culturally, I guess, that you don't have some of those same kind of ties that you do when you're on the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's funny. That's funny to think about. Damn, that's crazy. So when you go into a scene like that and you get a guy in a warrant, then you have all this collateral. Does your unit just keep it, or do you call in the Philly drug unit?
It depends what you're dealing with. Usually you'll call in the district, whatever district you happen to be in. And we work closely with Philly PD. So, a lot of times if they had a job, you need backup, you help each other, whoever's closest. Right. So, most of us knew other Philly cops. I mean, I knew a lot of the guys went to high school with me were Philly cops in the districts I worked. So if you needed help or you needed something, you usually call them in. To be fair, we didn't really get overtime if we pulled a gun or something like that. They would just take us off night shift and then make us work day shift to go to court. So if there was a gun or something, the Philly PD guys would get overtime for it. So, I didn't want to take it off night shift. And if he gets overtime, I'll gladly hand him the job and let him take it,
Yeah.
And they would do the same for us. If they
Yes.
picked up someone on a warrant, they just call us up like, hey, man, I got this dude. Meet me over here. And you come and get him.
That's great. Yeah. It keeps everybody happy.
Yeah. Everybody
Absolutely.
eats.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you describe the most strange or most bizarre thing you dealt with serving warrants?
Yeah, it was kind of a pretty neat one. Philly's again, big city. One of the very cool things about Philadelphia is a lot of times there are, different events going on in the city. So, you can stumble across some weird stuff. I worked down on South Street because normally we'd start at 11 at night. So we'd eat our lunch kind of at the beginning of the shift, get some pizza or something. And you'd meet all kinds of folks like pro wrestlers, football players, baseball players kind of walking around. So that was
Nice.
always cool. Craziest thing though was Kensington Avenue. Me and my teams coming down Kensington Ave from Frankfurt. So kind of heading down the Ave. And all of a sudden, this is probably like 2 a.m. or something, right? And the whole intersection is just lit up like it's daytime. And I'm thinking like, what happened? Is it like the crackhead Olympics? Like what's going on here? What's all the lights? And my team's getting excited. Like, all right, guys, let's get ready to jump. Once the driver gets up, we're hopping out on this to see what's going on. And as we get closer and closer, you kind of notice this isn't like, some normal drug related activity. Something's going on here. So we get a little bit closer. We stop the car and hop out, and we kind of notice there's guys in like red high vis vests, like security kind of dudes. But it was funny when we hopped out the vehicle, they all took off running, and I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" So as we get closer and closer, we kind of realize there's something being filmed here. It's like a TV crew or something, like a movie crew. And we get a little bit closer, trying to check out what's going on, and standing in front of us, like 5 feet in front of us, is Sylvester Stallone.
Nice.
So they were filming one of those Rocky movies, and we stumbled upon them filming it on Kensington Ave at 2-3 in the morning or whatever it was. And it was pretty cool. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna say I was starstruck, but like, you're like, this is not what I had thought it was going to be, right? Like, this is now Sly Stallone is right here. And my partner, George, kind of talks to him a little bit, and Sly and the producers or whatever it was, they're kind of huddle in there chatting, acknowledges, chat with us for a few minutes, and then kind of went about their business, But I think when you think about strangest things, if you'd asked me if I'm going to see Sly Stallone, I mean, I guess the original Rocky was filmed in Kensington, so, not a big surprise. But just to randomly be coming down the road and stumble upon Sly Stallone at 3 a.m. was pretty strange for me, I think.
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, that must have been like Balboa or something, like the last one he did.
Yeah, I think it was the Rocky Balboa one, I believe, because they had the one corner bar. I think they turned it into, what was it called, like the Flaming Sevens or something like that. I forget what it's called, but that's kind of like right down by Kensington. I think kind of where it starts at Front Street. But wild,
That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of Philly pride in those Rocky movies. We recently let my kids we watched all the Rockies from 1 all the way through. And I forgot how great they are, especially the first one that he wrote it, he starred in it, he got an Oscar. It's like, it's weird because when I grew up in the 80s and 90s and Sylvester Stallone was kind of like, the presentation of him I saw was like, there was a lot of mocking him as being like a meathead and like, there's a lot of like, he was in Mad Magazine a lot. Yo, what's up? Like punch drunk. But the guy is actually really, really brilliant. Like he's a very, very smart guy. And what we really liked about it too is every one of those movies has Christian undertones in it. And we're Christian. So it's like his faith was like really important to him. And he has the father throw down the blessing and all that stuff. I mean, they really were, as we rewatched them like 3 or 4 months ago. And I was like, there's a lot of really good moral, like the character of Rocky is very moral, very righteous and very, humble,
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. And there is like, every time they showed it, there was obviously was shot all over Philadelphia. It made me want to go there. I'm like, man, the city looks, I mean, Philadelphia, I think that in Greek, I think that means a brotherly love or something, right?
Yep, city of brotherly love. I mean, I'll tell you what, we were in training was really cool. Like we'd run downtown And often like our training classes would run the Rocky Steps. Like that's part of
Yeah.
your, and I don't care who you are. When you run up the Rocky Steps, you're like, all right, man, I feel a little bit like I got a little bit more in me
You
now
got to
that I'm
dance
running
around at the
stairs.
top. Like,
Yeah, it's glorious. I mean, and honestly, Philly's, you're from Boston. I mean, these are the two major cities that kind of started this country. So there's so much cool historic stuff downtown too. And when you're working nights, there's no traffic. You can just cruise over and check out Ben Franklin's grave, and there's nobody around
so
but you
cool.
really. It was always kind of cool to see those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had friends from the West Coast come out here and go to Boston, and they're like,
Mhm.
this place is like Europe. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, the cobblestone streets, the Freedom Walk, where Sam Adams came out and John Adams. And I guess you just take it for granted because we grew up there. But, when you grow up in the West Coast where the town center was master planned, and this town center is a Sears and Roebuck with a bunch of other stores. You know what I mean? There's the oldest building is, 70 years old. When they come out here and they're like, oh my gosh, this was built in the 1600s. They can't believe it. And it really does feel like it's very European the way these cities are.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm a history buff, so I guess I kind of, I enjoy that part of it too.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Do you ever see the breakdown of how the Boston accent came from the British accent? That is fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of linguistics. I mean, I remember there was a documentary called Do You Speak American about all the different dialects and things.
Yeah.
That's really cool stuff.
Yeah, I saw somebody break it down and how they like went through the accents over time, and how it was like the Boston accent was basically like almost like a Cockney, like a lower class British accent. And that's kind of what they were left with, but it was all derived from the British accent. And I never even would think that, but it makes sense because the British were here, and they were all from England. So it totally makes sense. But yeah, that's really cool, man. That poor Kensington, brother. I mean, I'm glad Stallone is still showing it some love. They probably had to clean the entire block. They're probably like, all right, get the city out here. We got to make this look not like a war zone.
Well, what's funny, the guys that ran away with the vest, I didn't mention this, they'd actually hired like local people, but I think half of them had warrants. So the minute they see us, they jetted and scattered and abandoned their posts, which was just, made it a little bit funnier.
Very authentic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Tristan, can you tell me about your most intense or terrifying call that you dealt with?
Most intense. I mean, this is going to sound weird, but I mean, the nature of the jobs we did, there was a lot of kind of intense jobs. I mean, a lot of these people are murderers, big time drug dealers, a lot of them with gun charges. And you're hitting some of the worst public housing buildings in the city, some of the worst neighborhoods. So like everything was kind of hot. There was never a day where you're like, all right, it's going to be an easy one today, right? It's all going to be just what craziness is going to happen next. Most intense for me, I remember one time we were down in Southwest area I'm not super familiar with because like I said, mostly work Kensington, but another team needed some help. So we kind of went out there and we hit a house that was in like a project building, public housing unit. And they're really small. So you don't have a lot of room to operate. And we get into place, me and my partners, we kind of get into the door, trying to make our way down these narrow hallways. And there's kind of some small bedrooms. So my lead partners, we used to call him the recorder. This guy does the paperwork and the talking, basically. So he's speaking with the mother of the guy we're looking for is a young guy on drug charges, like 20s or something. And she's swearing he's not here, of course, like everybody always does. And we hit the one bedroom, and all I hear on the other side is, and my brain is like, whoa, like this is getting real.
12 gauge.
And I got somebody behind me. And this hallway is, I'm not a small guy. I mean, my shoulders are barely fitting in this thing. And I'm just like, what are we going to do? And I kind of just went right at the door. And thank God it was a kind of cheap interior door. It came right off and on top of the dude. So we got him like pinned under the door,
Nice.
Get the weapon off him and lock him up, And it was just, I don't think at the second, like I realized like, whoa, this could have gone real bad
Lucky.
real quick.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, Monday morning quarterbacks where I always get myself like in the moment, I'm focused. I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm trying to not get killed or get anybody else killed. I'm trying to just, be safe and do what I'm doing. But then afterwards, you start thinking like, man, what could you have done different? And you start thinking, nothing. What could I have done different? I mean, the house is shaped the way it is. There's no other way for me to do it. And I think it just kind of, I don't know, maybe your mortality becomes, evident, you realize this could have gone real bad and you just start, I don't know, maybe you reevaluate things afterwards, but that was pretty scary, I think.
Yeah, that's really lucky, brother. You sandwiched them to the floor like almost like a cartoon. Because 12 gauges. I mean, it almost doesn't matter what he's got loaded in there. At 12 gauges, bad news, close quarters. That would have been bad. I'm sure
been
you
ugly.
didn't tell your wife about that one. I'm sure.
I honestly don't tell her any of the stuff. She's asked me, I said, just read the book. You can hear about some of it, and she started reading. She's like, you never told me this. I was like, yeah, man, because I don't want to, I know you're already worried. I mean, I don't want to make it worse. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure your wife or whatever, you go through the same kind of things. If a cop gets shot and you're home late, you're at home on time, they start wondering what's going on. I mean, maybe now with cell phones, it's a little bit better. You can easily contact them. But I mean, I know my wife would sometimes, if I'm stuck up at the county jail and counts on, I'm stuck there an extra hour or two and a cop gets shot in Philly or something happens, they're worried.
Yeah.
So I keep it to myself. I figured there's no point worrying her over this stuff.
Yeah, it's a tough, it's funny. It's double edged. Like I hear from some guys what you're saying, which makes sense. I hear from other guys that they do share a lot with their wife because it helps them, kind of like offload it. Maybe not right away, but like after it's been over for a while, they'll share it to help them with their mental health. But it is a really hard choice to make because you don't want to riddle that person with worry, but at the same time, they're like your closest person. They're your spouse. You want to like. I even spoken with guys before that like they're on the way to an active shooter and they're like, this could be like, it sounds really bad and this could be it. My wife and kids are home. Let me send a text like, I love you. I'm going here, blah, 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 blah. And then of course the wife is like destroyed, like, because there's a huge question mark. She has the news on, she sees it on the news and is kind of like, that is so tough. That is, I don't know which one is right, but I think sparing your spouse is very gracious.
I mean, you're 100% right on the sharing. Like, it's one of the things, advice I usually tell people is, you have to decompress, you have to debrief, you have to talk to somebody about this stuff.
Right.
Now, I didn't share it with my wife, but my team was pretty tight. We did some dangerous stuff, so we were like family, honestly. I know people say that, but we really were. So usually Friday when the shift's over, mostly a lot of people would come over to my house. So this is like, our shift ends at 7 in the morning.
Well,
So 8 o'clock in the morning, we're drinking beers in my yard at 8 o'clock in the morning and decompressing. And,
Sure.
My wife's like, what are you doing? And all you guys do is tell the stories. And you're like, yeah, because you have to talk about it with someone. And in my mind, the only people that could really understand it are the people that have been through it, the people that were standing next to you when this happened. And, I know there's kind of a macho field and there's sort of this, I guess a lot of people think it imperative to say nothing and just keep it inside and be strong. Well, you really got to talk to someone. And if it's your wife or, someone close to you, awesome. If it's your coworkers, awesome, whatever it is,
Right.
If you got to go talk to a mental health professional, do it. When I worked, we were afraid to do that because you'd be afraid they take your gun, take you off the street
Right.
and think the guy's having some psych issues, pull him. But whatever you got to do, talk to people and keep your head straight. So you're good on the job, good for your family, all that stuff.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Talk to somebody because it does help a ton. And I guess to your point, you just have to know your spouse. Like if they can't handle it or it's going to destroy them, then you editorialize what's going on and you talk to somebody who can handle it. That's just what you do. No one knows your spouse better than you. So you tell them what you can, then you become an attorney and years later and write a book about it and have her going, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the funny thing. Like she'll read this stuff. She's like, you never told me any of this. And I thought, I didn't think you'd find it interesting. Right.
Right. I'm sure in her heart of heart, she appreciates that.
Yeah.
She has to. Absolutely. Tristan, do you have a positive or heartwarming encounter in your years serving warrants?
I will say I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of heartwarming ones while I was doing it. In retrospect, now years later, I think I see it. And I'll tell you one of the kind of amazing things to come out of writing the book was we start obviously you're doing some promotion and stuff. So you have like a Facebook page and all this and that. And a number of the girls that we had actually arrested that were prostitutes down there, I mean, heroin addicted, prostitutes, finally turned it around. They got
Nice.
their lives together, and they're now like Facebook friends with us and saying, "Hey man, thank you guys." Like, I mean, I didn't realize at the time, but putting me in jail is exactly what I needed. It got me the help I needed to get cleaned up and get off the streets. And I think a lot of that stuff makes me feel good. Like, I mean, it's 20 years later, but it makes me feel good knowing there was some positive work to come out of this. Because honestly, when you work somewhere like Kensington, it can defeat you really easily.
Oh, I
Because
bet.
you could lock up 100 people tonight and it wouldn't make a dent. And the way the justice system is in Philly, they'd be back on the streets tomorrow anyway.
Right.
So sometimes you feel like no matter what you do, it's not worth it. But just knowing that you were able to help a couple of people, I think makes me feel better about what we did. And maybe makes putting your life on the line every single day for years on end, makes it worth it. So I think that's probably the most positive thing I've seen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've told people that before, like family members, when someone has a warrant and we have to arrest them, and it's like, there's been a problem for years. You know how it is. You show up and like, you're supposed to solve all the problems for the last 30 years in that 5 minutes. But I've told people before that this arrest could be the best thing that ever happened to this person, because this slows everything down. They should have this. For a lot of people, being arrested is bottoming out. Not all people. A lot of people have to do it 24 times. But for a lot of people, being arrested when they have an issue that's been coming to a head for years is an opportunity for everybody in their life to address it with them in a loving way. Because you've been arrested. This isn't us telling you have a problem. There's other people that have noticed, and now you've been arrested. And also, it's an opportunity for the legal system to be involved and to order some treatments. Because you can advocate through, with the court and to try to get, and DAs all around the country now are very open to creative sentencing type stuff where if it's like, a first or second offense and this person could benefit from some kind of rehabilitation, they'll go that route. They'll help you out, but it like, I try to tell people, like, this isn't the end of the world. This could be the best thing. I mean, I know everybody screams and shouts getting someone involved in the legal system is bad. Not always. Sometimes it's exactly what they need to get on the path, Yeah.
I mean, we have a good friend, a guy me and my co-author Mark grew up with, lived on the same block as Mark, block away from me, and got bad into heroin. Same thing. He was down in Kensington working as a pimp, and buying heroin, selling heroin, using heroin.
Yeah.
Really, really bad, where his mother would call up, my partner Mark and say, "Hey, look, can you guys go lock Pete up?" And we did it a couple times, and he relapsed and got back on the streets, but now he's doing good. He's got his life together. He's married. He's in contact with his family and his daughters again, working. He's been clean. And
That's
sometimes,
awesome.
it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, honestly,
Right.
it's a rarity. But when it does, it's just good to see people get their lives back together, especially if it's somebody that's close to you, like your friends or family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, God bless them. That's great. Tristan, a popular question on the show is advice to new police officers. People who are looking, they're in backgrounds, and they're looking if they're going to want to do it or not. And I say it all the time, but it's true. I get emails of people that hear you guys tell your stories and they decide to actually do it. So what advice would you give to someone getting into law enforcement now?
Well, I mean, I think I had three things like I'm kind of thinking of here. One, we talked about a little bit already. Talk to somebody. You can't just keep this in your own head and deal with it by yourself. I've always been very good at compartmentalizing things. So when I go to work, I put on my uniform. This is me now. I'm locked in. When I go home, I'm a different person. When I go play basketball with my buddies, I'm a different person. But you gotta be locked in when you're on the job for your own safety. But you also have to deal with the things you see. And, the worst part of the job for me is the stuff that you see. And I'm sure, you've seen everybody else who's done the job. You see people that are, we see people that are OD'd. You see people that are murdered. I saw a guy get hit by a train. That's not particularly fun.
Ooh, yeah.
And the worst part for me, I think, was always seeing kids in bad positions. Like, this is going to sound really callous, but if someone ODs, I view it like, you did it. It's on you, buddy. Like,
Right.
I feel bad for your family, but you made the choice and this is
You're
what
an adult.
happens. Yeah, but when you'd see children in them positions, I would get really angry, especially because I had kids like the same age.
Yeah.
And you just think like, man, this is rough. Like I can remember seeing young children crawling around on the ground in a house the whole floor was covered in. You know when people eat crabs, those tiny little swimmer leg things, like on the back, all over the floor, littered with them. You could see the ground moving from cockroaches and fleas, and this baby crawling across it in a dirty diaper, covered in bites. And we try to get family services involved, and basically, I hate to say it, but they're pretty useless. They don't really do much. But when you see stuff like that, you're like, my God, man, how can someone let this poor defenseless baby be in this spot? So, when you see stuff like that, it does take a toll on you. And you have to just figure out some way to vent, some way to deal with it, some way to keep yourself mentally healthy, which I guess leads to the second thing is take time for yourself. I know a lot of guys that never take days off, never, you go in hurt. I myself did this. I tore my shoulder up, my rotator cuff, in a fighting some guy high on PCP. And, they're put you on day shift to do physical therapy and rehab. And I don't want to do that. That's not what I signed up for this job for. It's not to be in the office messing with a rubber band to get my shoulder better. So I say, I'm fine. Get me back to work. And the work comp doctors want me back to work, so I went back too fast and my shoulder's still ruined to this day. So, if you're hurt, if you're tired, take time for yourself because, it's a dangerous profession and you never know what you're going to see. Or what's going to happen. So make sure you're good when you go into battle. You got to make sure you're healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. You got to be ready. Last point, don't take it personal. I mean, it's really hard. Like I said, I get mad when I see the kids in bad positions, but you can't take it personal. I think one of our sergeants told us very early, it's their job to run. It's our job to chase them. So don't get mad when they do their job, right? When they run, you kind of expect them to run.
That's funny. Yeah.
You can't take it personal. You can't, and very rarely I mean, sometimes you'd see ones like there were some pedophile cases where I kind of took them a little personal because I wanted that guy off the streets.
Yeah.
But you can't, you're not going to catch everybody. You can't stop all the crime. You can't stop social inequity. You can't stop poverty. You can't stop drugs. I mean, you can do what you can put in your shift and do the best you can for your community, for your team and for yourself. But you can't let it, it can't let it eat you up where you're just spending all your time at work and thinking, where's this dude? What am I doing? How am I going to find him? You gotta separate your work and personal life.
Yeah. I remember hearing a long time ago that there was this movement to be empathetic and have empathy for everybody, which is not bad, but for cops, it makes more sense to me to be sympathetic and be careful with the empathy thing, because empathy is you putting yourself in their shoes all the time. Mm-hmm. And if you're a sensitive person and you're always being overly empathetic, it becomes a detriment to doing your job. Like, because you know what I mean? If you're always putting yourself in their shoes and it really becomes hard to enforce the law, because it's like, you feel like this is unfair. You know what I mean? And it really bothers you mentally. You can't compartmentalize those things. But I think being sympathetic to somebody is fine, but being overly empathetic is tough. It can get in your head and screw you up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you're right along those same lines. Treat people with respect. There's going to be a time when you got to throw hands. There's going to be times when you got to do physical things and maybe things you don't want to do. But up until that point, try to maintain control. Try to maintain your discipline. Be respectful. Do all those things. I worked with guys that were quick to throw hands and they elevate things. I always looked at it like I'm not getting paid any extra. I understand I'm going to get in a fight here and there. It happens, no problem. But if I can get through this shift without extra paperwork, without having to get punched in the face or punch somebody myself, that's a bonus for me, right? I'd rather not do those things. So, if you come at people kind of here, they'll meet you there in most instances. Sometimes people are nuts and they want to fight you the minute you walk in the door, and there's not much you can do about it.
Just because of who you are.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, it's even a life-saving thing. I've had situations, me and my brother were at the bar at the corner of my block, and it's just Saturday afternoon watching a football game, minding our business. There's nobody there really. And some guy buys me a drink, and I don't know who it is. So he starts walking down the bar. I immediately start reaching in the back of my pants for a gun, right? Because I'm like, who's this dude? And he's like, no, it's cool. And I was like, I'll decide if it's cool. Like, who are you, man? And he's like, you don't remember me? I said, no. He said, you locked me up a couple weeks ago. And then I start reaching for the gun again, right? So I'm like, all right. And he's like, no. I just wanted to say thanks. You were really cool when you came in. I mean, imagine I'm showing up at your house at 3 a.m. I'm catching
Yeah.
you asleep. You don't know what's going on. Your kids are running around. Your wife's, asleep or something. And we were cool with the guy. Let him get dressed. Let him give his wife a kiss. Whatever you got to do, get out the door smoothly. And if I could do that and it gets you in the cars and it's easy, I'll do it every time. But I think we encounter so many people, you don't always remember them. They
Yeah.
remember you. So if you're nice to somebody, it might save you down the road, right? I mean, imagine if I just gripped him up by the neck and threw him in the car. He might have been coming up to hit me over the head instead of buying me a drink. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's great advice. Absolutely. The my dad used to say that. He'd say, just treat everybody like a gentleman as much as you can, and you'll know when it's time not to be nice anymore. Like it will be obvious. But especially me, I've always worked in smaller towns. It's like I just see these people at the grocery store. You know what I mean? Like I'm with my family and there they are. And that was kind of my father's point. He's like, just be a gentleman. You know what I mean? As much as you can. And when it's time to not be nice, it will be obvious,
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought it must be so hard for you guys in like smaller towns where you actually know everybody, because they know where you live. They know all those kind of things. It makes it a little bit rougher maybe, but at least the city, you do have a little bit of anonymity maybe, as opposed to if you're the only sheriff in a small town or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of trade-offs all the way down the line where it's like, all right, so you work in a rural area, so it's not dangerous all the time. But when it is, you're alone and you can be alone for a while. And then it really, really sucks. In the cities, you usually have like a pig pile, like a team of guys are with you.
Oh, yeah.
But you're doing it all the time. In the city, it's just call to call to call. You sign on for roll call and it's like, we got 30 on the board. Boom, go. So there's that trade-off. And then there's like you're saying, the identifying you thing. Like everybody knows where the local cops live. If they really have a big problem, they know where to get at you. And there's only so many grocery stores in the area. You know what I mean? Everybody's kids go to the same schools. Like it's much different. Like when I worked for Los Angeles, City of Los Angeles as a background investigator for the LAPD for a couple of years. And I made some wonderful lifelong friends there. And I used to tell those guys that like were, retired LAPD, robbery homicide dudes, like just badasses. I would be like, brother, we had different jobs. Like the job was just like, so, and they're, what do you mean you were a cop? I'm like, yeah, but like, cause I took a little break. I'm like, it's so different working in a rural area than like the city guys couldn't even understand. Like they're running and gunning all the time. Like that's
I got a lot of students now that are like sheriffs at these small counties in Ohio, or they're working in smaller towns. And, they'll always say like, man, it must have been crazy in Philly. I'm like, it was, but I do know that if something breaks off, I'm hitting the assist button and there's 300 people charging in this scene in the next minute and a half. I mean, I only got to make it a couple minutes and someone's going to be here to help me. Where if you're out in Hardin County in Northwest Ohio, man, you're running through fields and farms chasing somebody. I mean, backup might be an hour and a half away or something. To me, that's terrifying because it's you and you're alone. And that, I don't know, that scares me more maybe than all the concentration of violence and guns and things you run into in a city.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's interesting. Like we were talking before we came on, like it's just law enforcement across the country is like, they're like different jobs, it's crazy. They're all similar, but different. Tristan, let's talk about the book, Philly Warrant Unit. You had a co-author here, Mark Fusetti, is that right?
Yes, sir. He was actually one of my best friends growing up. We both grew up basically on the same block, essentially, in Philly. I grew up on Bridge Street. He grew up on Granite, like right behind me.
Oh, nice.
And I actually got him into the Warrant Unit. I think I was in about a year and said, yo, come check this out. He came over and started working, and then he became a sergeant. Once I took off, went to law school, he stayed, and he became a sergeant and worked with them until the end. And he actually ran the Philly Warrant Unit's very last shift, and it's a big chase. It's actually in the book we cover. I think it's the last chapter, the end of the unit. I think that altogether the unit was around about 50 years.
Wow, so it was on quite a while.
Yeah, one fatality in all that time, which is tragic, obviously, but pretty amazing, I think, considering the high level of danger involved in the work.
Yeah, the areas you're working, that's crazy.
Yeah, and we're hitting 8 houses a night times, 3-4 teams, 24 hours a day. So, I think we got, I don't want to say lucky, maybe God's looking over us, a little bit of luck, a little bit of whatever, I mean, we
you'll take it.
Got through. Yeah, we got through. The book is I didn't write it like a narrative, like one whole kind of storyline. It's just kind of broken down into like vignettes or stories. Some of them
cool.
are funny. Because it's one part of the job I think people never really think about is the humorous side. And we see some crazy stuff, some really funny, ridiculous stuff. And I don't know how it is with your units or where you guys work or anyone else out there, but we used to like to, mess with each other a little bit, have some fun. So there's some funny stories in there. And there's obviously a lot of rooftop chases, shootouts, all that kind of crazy stuff you'd expect. And maybe a little bit of redemption because there's a couple of stories about some of the girls who were working the streets we worked with and kind of what became of them. There's some really sad stories. There's a story in there about a young lady who got addicted to drugs and fell into prostitution. And she wound up ODing and they dumped her body in like an abandoned house and rats were eating her face and all this horrible stuff. My partner Mark was able to locate the guy who did that and they put him in jail for quite a long time. So there's some cool stories in there about that stuff as well.
That's awesome. It sounds like a fantastic book. Philly Warrant Unit, available Amazon and just Amazon or everywhere you can get a book?
It's Amazon, hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And I think if you have the Amazon Unlimited, you can even read it for free if you pay for that monthly service. So it's all through Amazon. I think someone's selling them on eBay, but I think they're just charging a fee and then having Amazon ship you the book for twice as much money. But that's not me selling them on eBay. It's just just on Amazon. Yeah, for now at least. These
MFers. Well, I'll put the link in the show notes so people can get right to the book. The real link. The same thing with me. And there's been people online selling Things Police See t-shirts or TPS retired. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this isn't me. Don't buy these. But what can you do there? I think they're like in Malaysia, so there's really nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, they hit my daughter. My daughter's an artist, and they stole her stuff and were making shirts and posters and all and selling it like considerably. I had to threaten them with some legal letters, and thank God they backed off. But it was in China. There's not much I could do on anyway, honestly. So
yeah, well, good legal threats work sometimes, even across seas.
That's it.
That's awesome. Tristan, it was an honor to have you, man. Great stories. Thank you so much. I'm going to do the outro to the show. Can you hang on just like 2 minutes?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. It's been wonderful. Thanks.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you. I'll be right back with you. Mm-hmm. The great Tristan Kilgallen, everybody. Really, really fun stories. I didn't even know a unit like that existed, but it makes sense, especially in one of the biggest cities in the country, Philadelphia. Plenty of warrants to be executed there. So thank you to him. Really good time. This is a time in the podcast where I thank the Patreon sponsors. This is if you join the Patreon and you do Sergeant or above, you will get a shout out on the show. Who I'm talking about is these are the lieutenants. The great and powerful Andy Biggs. Kyle Roberts. Lieutenant Kyle Roberts. Thank you, sir. Michael Roach. Roach Machines. AI Solutions. Check him out. Now to the sergeants. Lane Campbell. The handsome Lane Campbell. Gary Steiner. Adam Mihal. Tony Fahey. Seth Wright. John Shoemaker. Lauren Stimson, everybody. Jason Lau. Sasha McNabb. Sean Clifford. Tammy Walsh. Holding it down dispatch. Thank you, Tammy. Greg Gadboy, thank you. Iceman from Motor Cop Chronicles, check out his podcast. Thank you, Iceman. George Tessier, love you, buddy. See you at church. The great Dennis Carrasquillo, everybody. Scott Young, Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, amazing woodworker. Check him out on Instagram. That's Burley Boards. Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys. Yeehaw! Hope you're having a good time in Wyoming. Raymond Arsenault, everybody. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, my man. Stay safe out there. Elliot Sykes, everybody. Brad Thompson, Nancy Hammond, ladies and gentlemen. Clark Luckoff, thank you. Adam McMahon, Sheriff Ronald Long, thank you. Zachary Fleet, the great Jason Labrie, everybody. George Carey Otis, thank you. Dylan Mosher, John and Aaron Kate, love you guys. See you at church. Lisa Gano, thank you. Sherry Finch, thank you, Madame. Gabriel Decknop, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Smith, everybody. The handsome and venerable Eric Smith. Jackson Talton from Black Box Safety. Check them out. Thank you, Jackson. The great Marcus Johansson, everybody. Brett Lee. Cale Oswalt. Thank you, Cale. Guys, the list is long, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you love the show, you've heard all the free content, and you're still listening at this very moment, that is truly amazing. You can join the Patreon to support I love that and I appreciate it. But I will see you guys next week. Thank you.